So David Harbour plays a small but key character. With somebody like David,
Hmm.
this is a Netflix movie. How much is it you saying, I think a David Harbour would be great? And how much is it for like a role like that, Netflix saying, David Harbour is very popular to our audience. Maybe you should put David Harbour in.
Yeah, it's a little bit of both because, we're going through and there was a list of people that I wanted to try to get a hold of for that part. And, we put some offers out and some people weren't available. Some people weren't interested. But then, when you're going through it, then when David Harbour came up, I think it might have been, Sarah Finn was our casting director and she's great. So she's always giving ideas and then Joe, we mentioned David, and we're like, oh, that could actually be really great. And as soon as his name came up as a possibility, Netflix was like, hey, these are the numbers. The logistics of it is a huge audience on Netflix. This could be a really good choice. So, they're not saying you have to hire him, but they're like in the background going, yes, do it.
Right.
And so you take that into consideration, and it worked out. He's a great actor, a cool dude, and he brought something very unique to the role, and I think it was the right choice. And he has a huge following on Netflix already.
That sequence is really the one fight sequence that Chris gets beaten in the movie. David kind of takes him down. Obviously, he's hurt from the arm and whatever else, but could you sort of talk about crafting that fight and the fact that it is the only time that Chris loses in a fight?
Yeah, we tried to, we felt it was necessary in that moment to kind of justify the use of deadly force by Ovi, is to put Rake in a compromised position to where his life was in danger. And it did come up, we discussed like how is, this guy going to beat him? But then we discussed it in our backstory is that those two guys, and here's a spoiler alert, who knows where these prequels or sequels or whatever could possibly go if this Netflix likes the movie. But their backstory is these guys have trained together and, and they just kind of they not grew up, but like spent a lot of time together in their service, in the military and even outside of that and kind of like, private military sector. And their skills, I think they would be matched, but then they just went in different directions. Harbour went kind of native, as you say. He kind of found a life in Bangladesh and stayed there. And Rake kind of kept going down that path. But their skill set, if you match them up, they're kind of evenly matched. And so to make up for, the fact that Rake has been doing it consistently and, Harbour's character had not, we make sure that if Chris had enough damage, if he was beaten down enough, we'd believe that Harbour had the skills to take him down.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that. You guys could essentially make a prequel movie with David and Chris teaming up to do something.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of potential. It's so interesting. And again, the beauty of an ambiguous ending is that there's a lot of ways you can go. You can either go forwards or backwards. And either way you look on the timeline are very interesting stories.
Have you actually discussed when you were on set or after you've wrapped now, have you actually discussed with David and Chris an idea for a prequel, or is this sort of like pie in the sky? You know what I mean?
No, I mean, it wasn't something on set. It was something that, although, as soon as it got mentioned that, the thought of a sequel, because I guess, Netflix was enjoying the dailies and things were coming together and people were like, oh, this could be, you talk about all these things. Is it a franchise? Is it all these things? Who knows until the movie comes out and the audience responds? They'll be the ones who decide. But it was talked about, and as soon as it was, kind of Joe brought up an interesting point that like most of the time you get a sequel, rarely do you go back in time into prequels. And so then the discussion it was very interesting to like, oh, okay. It makes sense that, you get Harbour and Chris because they have a great chemistry on screen. It's very fun. Yeah, tense. It's kind of a cool interaction they have. So we thought that's a very interesting way, if you were to go backwards in time, that you could play out the prequel to a story like this.
Also, David's a big dude, and Chris is like, they look like they're evenly matched, if you will. Like in terms of size and presence. I would love to see them two, fights like what I saw in Extraction. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, there's a lot of potential there. They're both, both great actors, both, physically kind of similarly, size. So they're two big guys. And that was, part of the idea of the casting is it had to be somebody who could stand toe to toe with Chris, and you would believe that he could, have a chance. Because Chris is a big, strong, intimidating guy. Not intimidating in like a personal sense. He's the nicest guy in the world, but has a presence in the movie with that character that's very, very intimidating.